Hello, everyone. Welcome to this week's episode of the Refold Roundtable Podcast, the podcast where we talk about all things language learning. And this week, we are talking about keeping things fresh while you're learning a language. How do you keep things exciting? How do you stay excited about learning the language? And all things like that. My name is Bree. I am the social media person for Refold, and I am learning Spanish. I am here with George, aka Gorg, aka Gerg. And Gorg, do you want to go ahead and
Derek.
introduce yourself? Gorg.
Hello, I am George, also known as Gorg and apparently Gerg. And
When I'm
I
frustrated, it's Gerg.
I like languages, and I do a lot of stuff, wear a lot of hats here at Refold.
And we also have Shiki, our token Japanese learner. Shiki, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
I'm the token Japanese learner. Every friend group has one. You
Every
just
friend
don't
group
know
has
who
a
they are
Japanese learner.
sometimes.
In Refold. In Refold, you do.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any conversation I've had on Refold where there wasn't at least one Japanese learner.
True. Well, I am a Japanese learner, stage 2C, and I am a language coach for Refold. I help people learn languages, not just Japanese, but other ones.
Also really good at like doing nitpicky tasks.
Oh, thank
She
you.
does that too. She does more than coaching.
Yep.
It's
Go
true.
do data entry.
Mm-hmm. Copywriting.
All right. And Bree, what are
Dabbling.
we talking about today?
We're talking about keeping it fresh. We're
Keeping it
talking about
fresh.
how we like stave off the monotony of learning a language,
So
doing
this
the
is an
same thing day in
interesting
and day out.
topic because actually, to quote the great Katsumoto, you don't get bored of the language, you get bored of the content. Now, I disagree with that. I think you can actually get bored of the language, but I think to a large part, it's true. You don't get bored of the language, you get bored of the content.
Yeah.
So, what are y'all's tricks to staving off boredom? And one thing you hear is like, oh, native English speakers never get bored. That's true, but I feel like English is an exception. Um, certainly if you're
People
learning
learning
Filipino.
English don't get
No,
bored.
like native English speakers, right? It's never like, oh, I'm
Yeah.
bored of doing stuff in English, but that's just such a unique circumstance. It's the global language. They've got
I think
Germans making YouTube content in English, right? For
I actually think
international
it's
audiences.
possible. It's happened to me. I think I have gotten to the impossible point where English content is freaking boring. It's like I open up my English YouTube sometimes, as a little treat while I'm eating because I can't eat without watching something now.
That is probably not a good thing.
That is so healthy.
That's
What
a different
healthy
podcast.
language learning habit.
I've always been told not to watch stuff while eating because it'll lead you to like overeat.
Oh, well, I'm screwed.
Oops. We're not going to talk about
Oops.
that. But I think it's at a point where I open up my English YouTube and I'm like, wow, I have nothing to watch. Even though I'm subscribed to like hundreds of people. It's like it is rough in these streets, man.
Wow. I don't think I'm bored of English content. I'll be honest.
I
I
am
think some
certainly
days
not.
I'm more apathetic than others, and it's harder to like push that dopamine button.
English music is
Mm.
so good. Here lately, I've been feeling kind of homesick. And I've just been listening to like the music that I grew up with. I've been listening to Michael Jackson and John Prine and then like the Highwaymen. So, all the classic sort of, Willie Nelson, Johnny Cash, sort of country western singers.
I was going to say same, but I just listen to K-pop, so it doesn't count.
So I certainly do not get bored of English content. And
don't.
I have found that in the past month or so, my target language content has started to match my English language content. I don't know what has happened. I used to be a really heavy reader, shooting for like 10,000 plus words a day in my target language. And here lately, all I have been doing is YouTube shorts.
In your target language?
In my target language.
That's good.
All I do is YouTube shorts. And I started to get bored of reading. I did. So I don't read. I changed my media source. So I have fiber now. I didn't have fiber for a while. I was on
Proud of you.
yeah, I was on my pocket Wi-Fi, which people hear is pocket Wi-Fi, but it's pocket Wi-Fi. I was on my pocket Wi-Fi for like a month,
Yeah.
and big old problem. I moved, and my ISP was like, "I'll come out," and then they came out, and they're like, "Actually, we don't serve this area." And I'm like, "What?" And they're like, "Yeah,
Oh, how
sorry,"
lame.
because that's just what happens in developing countries. Sometimes people get confused about like what their company does,
Yeah.
and I had to switch ISPs. Now I've got fiber, so I can stream all of the Netflix I want, and I have been watching Netflix and doing YouTube Shorts. Um,
Very cool.
and that's like a total like 180 because I used to be one of these people who could not sit through a series, but I have felt compelled to keep up with the Wednesday Addams memes and pop
Yeah.
culture.
Mm.
And I really
Yes.
think, I've gotten bored of Link. Actually, I saw my Link subscription. I got charged again today. And I'm like, you know what?
No.
I haven't used you in a few days. I'm questioning why I have it now that I'm not using it every day religiously like I was. So I definitely
You'll go
think
back.
to keep it fresh, change what you're doing.
Change the
If you're getting
medium.
bored of watching slice of life anime, go read a book. If that doesn't work, try shorts. Try short form content, TikTok, YouTube shorts.
I think trying to
I
force yourself to do things that you don't want to do is
Mhm.
a really good way to burn out,
Mhm. Like, if you're trying
you
to do
know?
things in a systematic way where it's like, "Oh, I'm 2C. I'm trying to get to the stage 3. I'm trying to just watch
Yeah.
slice of life, and that's it.
Yeah.
Nothing else." And it's like, you have to switch it up sometimes. I have to switch it up sometimes. I'm focusing on the slice of life, but sometimes I just have to watch, like,
What happened to
random
your
crap on YouTube.
self-imposed slice of life at jail, Vanessa?
It's still I'm still in jail. It's still ongoing.
Oh, shit.
Um, but, since I've been in school, I haven't really been able to immerse much. I have finals. I had a final today, and then I have some finals tomorrow. So I
Godspeed.
haven't yeah. Yeah, so I haven't really been able
I know that
to
you're like me though.
focus.
You're an addict to short form video content.
Only if it's in English.
Only if it's in English.
Really?
Really, that
You have
surprises me because
TikToks.
so you've not trained your YouTube Shorts sort of like algorithm for your
I mean, is it a
Japanese
different
YouTube.
algorithm than the
It
normal content?
it is a different algorithm.
No, more work.
It is a different
Not
algorithm.
that
I learned
hard.
that.
It's not that hard. You just gotta pause in a couple target language videos, and
Mm.
I think it's a lot easier to trick YouTube Shorts than TikTok,
Oh, yeah, for
personally.
sure. Yeah,
I think
TikTok's a
TikTok's a
pain.
lot more sophisticated, whereas
Yeah.
YouTube is more, blunt
Try
force.
short form content. It's so easy, man.
Mhm.
I am totally brain dead. I sleep all day and I work all night. And by the time I'm done,
Yeah.
I can just swipe through target
Mm.
language content. And it's totally upped my immersion. And I learned that YouTube Shorts has like subtitles. So like the autogen subtitles are pretty good for like Spanish, Portuguese.
Yeah.
You can turn them on and it's great. I get my news through YouTube Shorts. I subscribe to like Telemundo Noticias and all of like the Spanish news channels and like I just
Oh, I
scroll.
should do that.
And it
That
doesn't
sounds
feel
like
like
a
I'm
great
watching the
idea.
news. It's like 1 or 2 minute news stories. I get like
Yeah, I
the
love
the
that.
deets and I can move on. But
Mm.
So, like, that's a good strategy. So, a strategy is do something that requires low effort in your target language.
sure, low
Yeah.
friction. And if you
Low
Mhm.
get bored,
friction.
change it up. To me, change your media sources. I've gotten bored of Link, I've gotten bored of Wattpad and reading. I'm watching Netflix, doing YouTube shorts. It's great.
Yeah. I feel like changing your media sources can be really difficult when, and it's hard to recognize when a good time to do that is.
Mm.
Um, like for me, I get in this habit of like binging a type of input source. So I'll binge reading because that's what I'm super into. And that is
Mm.
the activity that I'm really into. And then gradually I'll find myself
And I find
after
that I'm
having read a
reading
good book or
dominant when it
something.
comes to Spanish.
Yeah. Oh,
I'll be
yeah.
honest. I feel like my
Yeah.
comprehension drops. I can pretty okay read a book for adults in Spanish,
Yeah.
especially if it's in one of my domains. But man, unless I'm listening to someone who speaks like very, very standard, uh, very well enunciated Spanish, my listening comprehension is just not there.
Honestly, mine too, unless I'm listening to podcasters that I'm very familiar with. But what I was trying to say is sometimes it's hard to recognize when it's a good time to switch. Sometimes I don't notice that I'm being fatigued, but I will notice that my comprehension in reading will drop.
It
And
shouldn't
it's
feel
not
like
because
work, right? Once you're
and it's not
past
because I'm getting
2C,
dumber. It's because I'm just not able to concentrate, and it's not something that I'm able to engage with, you know? And I feel like when you're having a hard time engaging with something, even if you don't know that you're bored with it, I think that's a good sign to look for something else to do.
Yeah, I just
right?
vibe check
And
it.
You just vibe
beyond
check it. Yeah, just vibe check what you're doing.
Yeah, I think
beyond
about
just
doing
input,
something and
you
then
can also
I don't know.
output.
Yeah,
So that's
Mm.
something that we've noticed internally. So as we talked about on the live stream, was it last weekend or was the weekend before?
it was last weekend.
It was
Yeah,
last
last
weekend. Time
weekend.
is a blur.
Time is a
Um,
blur.
Josh talked about how he's going through stage 3 and he's being coached internally. So Ethan, Gorg, Vanessa, we're all like with him. He's being paid. He gets to take an hour or two a day to like output, do stage 3 activities. That's really cool. Um, he has found that outputting has made him interested in French again. It has
Mhm.
revitalized it. And he, Josh, our data scientist, is a little bit of a social creature. He really enjoys social media and talking to people in French, apparently. I would have never guessed. Brie, on the other hand, has also been going through stage 3, but she's not so social. She's a
I am
hermit.
not.
And she has taken to journaling. And she's like a journaling machine.
Well, I
I
just
don't,
started,
she just
but
started, but
thank you.
for just starting, you've written like 6 posts or something.
No, I wrote 2 posts on Journally, the platform.
And you're
And those
also writing in your scratch journal, your actual like
yeah.
analog pen and paper
Yeah,
journal.
so I have my like stream of consciousness journal where I don't care about punctuation or anything. I'm just trying to get the words out and into the universe, out of my head and into the universe, without judgment and just stream of consciousness. Because I'm trying to.
Do you feel like that's revitalized your interest in Spanish? Do you think that that's made it feel fresh?
It's definitely a fun activity that I enjoy doing, and I look forward to it. And I feel like
You
if you
used to
look
journal in
forward to
English,
something
right? You
when I
used to
was
be into that normie
younger,
core stuff,
yeah, well,
journaling, bullet
kind of.
journals.
I tried bullet journaling. I couldn't really keep it up. But I did journal a lot when I was a moody teen, and it was really cathartic. And I think there's something to be said for journaling about your life. So I wanted to start journaling again, and I thought, why don't I just start journaling my thoughts in Spanish? Who cares if they're not grammatically correct and I'm not using the right punctuation and I don't have the right gender for things? No one's gonna read this but me. So
Right
yeah, it's
number.
been fun. Yeah, I think I'm on like entry number 5 and I try to do like a page and a half of like an A5, not like a B5, but like an A5 sheet, which is smaller. Um, and I do like a page or 2 a day in the morning as I talked with my kid. It's really nice, actually. It's a nice calm way to start your morning. But I think
That seems
that if
fun.
you're looking forward to doing something, that's a good
It goes back to
indicator.
don't be bored. Don't force yourself.
Yeah.
If you hate the series, if you hate reading, switch. Find something else to
Yeah.
do. There's a
Yeah,
lot to
don't
do in
be afraid
languages.
to drop things.
Yeah. Don't feel obligated to finish something. I've seen a
Yeah.
lot of people, in the community who are like, "Oh, I started reading this book, but I'm so bored, but I just wanna finish it because, I don't know,
Don't.
I feel like I have to complete it,"
Like a
or like a
sunk cost
show.
fallacy.
Yeah,
It
something like
really
I
that.
is.
tried that a few months ago. I tried it. I was like, I have this off. So I realized it was the author that I read. One of my favorite authors in Filipino, Kuya Soju. He's really good at writing one shots and short stories. His books, he always ends them awfully. He's like Stephen King. He's a horror
Mm.
writer. He has really strong, like, beginnings and middles, and then he just can't end them. And I realized he just doesn't end books well. But for a while, I was like, why do I not actually finish the books that I start? And I challenged myself to it. And I did it. I kept up with it. I finished 2 books, 2 whole books. I was feeling good. and then I'm like, "I hate this. It's making me actively not want to read."
Right?
Mhm.
Yeah. And it's hard because I feel like in English, I have different rules for myself that I keep when reading or watching something. Usually in English, if I start a book, I like to finish it, generally, unless I really detest it. And I usually only read one thing at once in English. In Spanish, I have the opposite rule where if I usually give something a few chapters because you have to get into the groove of a book, I think. So I have like a 3 chapter rule where I will read 3 chapters, and if I don't jive with it by 3 chapters, I'm out. If I jive with the book, but I stop jiving with it, I'm out. The moment I feel like I have to force myself to read the book, I don't, because I don't
Yeah.
want that book to make me dread doing Spanish. I'll also read more than one book at once, which is something that I don't do in English. And I view it kind of like flipping between channels. I feel like this is going to date me as a human being, but before the internet, there was cable TV and you would flip through channels to find what you're interested in. And
I did that on satellite TV too.
yeah, satellite, cable, public TV,
Television,
even.
basically.
You just like television with a remote with numbers on it,
Mhm.
basically.
Do
And
remotes
I do
not
that
have
with
numbers on them
books.
now?
Not like streaming ones. My
I
daughter,
don't have a
as an
TV.
aside,
I don't own a
sh
TV, and I've not had a TV in 5
we
years.
have a TV. It's an old TV, and it has like the main remote that comes with it has numbers on it. And my kid was like, "What are these numbers for?" And I had no idea how to even begin to explain to her what those numbers were for. But anyway, I think that if you have multiple pieces of content, if you get fatigued of one book, because sometimes you really like a book, but it gets stressful because the characters do something you don't like, or maybe this is just me, and you can't handle reading it. If you switch to something else and you kind of decompress from that one book, it's easier to jump back into it. And I've done
So
that
juggling
with
multiple
quite a
books,
bit.
basically.
Yeah, I think I'm reading like 3 or 4 right now at the same time.
I cannot keep up with that many books. I would lose my place, I would lose track of the story.
Yeah, it happens, but it's kind of like riding a bike. You get back into the groove.
I really like shorts. I really like short stories. I'm a big fan of, like, web fiction, like, on Reddit, there's a subreddit, HFY, and, No Sleep for science
Hmm.
fiction, fantasy, and, horror, respectively. And one thing I do find kind of limiting to my reading is that I only read in Spanish and link, and it requires me to like go find something, import it,
Oh,
and I wonder if I could get like a great dictionary for my Android tablet because I've got some global dictionaries now. iOS tablets, I guess iPads, right, have these like built in natively. Android, we're not so lucky, but I think they exist. Some like global dictionaries. And I feel like if I could just more organically find stuff, like while I'm browsing Reddit or browsing the internet or something, I would be more inclined to do more reading, rather than like
yeah.
making it into a whole ordeal with Link. One of
So
the
like reducing
downsides of Link
friction.
is there's a lot of friction. It boils
Hmm.
back down to like do things that are fun, easy, low friction.
Yeah,
Don't
I
do
would
anything
definitely
that
agree
doesn't
with that.
spark joy.
Yeah, Marie Kondo, your content that you're consuming.
Mhm.
Thank the book for being there when you needed it, and then throw it away. Well, don't throw it away, but stop reading it. I could never throw away a book. What's another good way? So we have switching up content. We have juggling multiple pieces at this of content at the same time. This is something
We
that
talked about
Gorg put in
changing.
here.
Oh, what did I put in here?
You put I'm looking at our Notion. For everybody listening, we have a Notion sheet where we brainstorm
We do
topic ideas.
brainstorm. We spend a lot of
Mhm.
time on these podcasts. We take a
And
lot of
I see
notes.
one that might be controversial, so I think it'll be fun to talk about.
Which one? Because I tend
Dabbling.
to write controversial things.
Mm.
Dabbling in other
Dabbling.
languages.
Dabbling in
Mhm.
other languages is actually great for like realizing how far
Yes.
you've come. I challenge anyone who feels like they've made no progress. Okay. Oh, I've been learning Japanese for a year and I feel like I've made no progress. I know 200 words. Go open up a book. in a language you don't speak. And you're like, where do I find one? Go find one. Wikipedia. Go to Wikipedia in, your, in a
It's
language.
easy. Do you have the internet? Google something.
Google something. And it's really refreshing. Um,
Mhm.
Even
Whenever
if it's
I
a closely
yeah.
related language like
Yeah.
Portuguese.
Yeah,
Portuguese.
whenever I feel down on myself for my Japanese, I just go and attempt to look at things in Korean, and I'm like, "Wow, I can't read this." Uh, all right. That didn't last very long. I feel better now, because at least I can
Yeah,
read Japanese. I can
it's a
just read
really
it.
good
Yeah.
feeling uh, because it's easy to forget how far you've come. You get focused on like, I don't know this word, where at the beginning you're sort of like, wow, I know that one word out of the 10-word sentence or whatever.
It's
Mhm.
And
so
there's that
exciting. Yeah.
shift. And a good way to bring it back is to look at it like, look at a page in a book in a different language and realize just how far you've come. And it's really trippy if you do it with a related language because you'll look at like Portuguese and you'll be like, I should understand you, but I don't.
Hmm.
Or
So,
Italian.
yeah, Italian.
Yeah, it's really trippy. I remember when I
So,
first started learning Spanish and I accidentally opened up something in Portuguese and I had no idea what was going on. Not just like in what in the page, but like my life. I had thought that I had like some sort of weird migraine that was causing me to forget everything that I knew. And it took me a solid like 5 minutes to realize this isn't like lately. This was like a few years ago that I was reading Portuguese and not Spanish. But
it
now I would
happens.
know right away. I would know instantly that
Mhm.
it wasn't Spanish. But yeah, it is really trippy
Yeah.
in a
So I
good
definitely
way.
think dabbling is great. I mean, didn't Lamont or Elegant the Cat, didn't he recently have a video where he was like, gonna spend this year dabbling? Uh,
He did.
and yeah, what was the takeaway there,
He
Bree?
had some rules, right? His rules were he couldn't like fall in love with a language and just learn that one. So no falling in love with a language was
Mm.
a rule. He could only spend a certain amount of time with the language and he can only dabble with them. And the goal was to, I think, and I could be remembering this wrong. It's been a while since I saw this video, but I feel like the goal was to learn about other languages, but also kind of fuel the fire behind him learning Swedish. I'm pretty sure that's what it was. But I've heard that advice from a lot of people where if they're feeling really stuck in the language that they're currently learning, they'll take a step back and learn something else for a while. And then when they come back to the original target language, they feel acceleration faster. And I haven't experienced that because I haven't actually taken a step back and gone hard on another language that wasn't Spanish. Have you experienced that, Gorg or Shiki?
I have, for sure. I've experienced, it's sort of like I went pretty hard on Portuguese for a few weeks, and I still like Portuguese. I wrote a blog post, Gork's favorite YouTube channels in Portuguese. Portuguese YouTube is just so good. Like people forget that you've got like Mozambique and like Angola, and it's like a nice slice of culture that you don't usually see, right? Like sub-Saharan
Yeah.
Africa. Like if you're immersing in Spanish, good luck. Equatorial Guinea exists, but there's like no content coming out of it. Like 50-year-old dictatorship or whatever. Just not the same. It's also a tiny country compared to the Portuguese countries. But it made me realize how much further I had to go with my Spanish because, like, I still use Spanish at work. I'm still answering emails in Spanish, helping customers and clients, and I found it very invigorating. Um, it was definitely fun being able to jump in and only have a couple of percentage difference in like being able to read a book in terms of like known words. Uh, but I found it very invigorating, inspiring because like when I came back to Spanish, it was even easier. Like Portuguese was doable for sure, but it was slightly more friction. You know, uh, Comparing Brando Sando's book Mistborn, Chapter
Yes.
One Mistborn in Portuguese, Chapter One Mistborn in Spanish. Um, it was something like 94% word coverage in Portuguese, 98% word coverage in Spanish. And that's a big enough of a difference to like, it totally feels like, I don't know, using the bathroom after holding it in. It's just a really nice feeling going from like kind of getting it and having to do some lookups to just like breezing through the book. And
Yeah,
it totally reminded me of like, oh, I do actually know a decent amount of Spanish. And yeah, I found it invigorating.
that's awesome. So that happened to you like recently with
Very
Portuguese and
recently, it
Spanish.
just happened. Yeah, I've been going hard on Spanish.
Do you feel
Um,
refreshed?
I do feel refreshed.
I'm so glad you're back on the Spanish train. Welcome back.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's nice being back.
I'm glad. I'm glad. What is another I'm looking
Learning
at a list.
something in your target language.
Yes, that's
We
something
get
that you're
so,
really passionate about.
I'm very passionate about it because we get so caught up in learning our target language that we sometimes forget the forest for the tree. Blah, 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 blah. We sometimes don't see the forest for the trees. Languages are tools, they're meant to be used. Okay? If you're not talking in the language, then you should be communicating something in the language, like understanding information.
You
So for
can't
me,
make me.
Watching shorts.
for watching shorts, watching me use shorts, I'm getting there. For me, I'm not at the level of Spanish where I could take a course. I would love to. So whenever I learn something new at work, I do often watch a video on the topic in Spanish, but then I go and watch it again in English, because we use a lot of different tools, and when it comes to like spreadsheets and things, and I would like to know, but usually I'm not quite there yet. But languages are meant to be used, and if you get bored of intaking uh, anime or fiction, switch it up. I didn't think I would like the news, but I'm American. I don't live in the States, and I do like to know what happens in the States. So I subbed recently to Telemundo Noticias, which is Spanish, but it's an American sort of like broadcaster, right? Based in Miami, I think. So it's like American news. So I can hear about like snowfalls in Nevada, um, of all places, right? Nevada, snow places in Nevada, and like keep up with like what's going on in America through Spanish. It gives me like a purpose. Like, okay, I'm gonna go watch the news. I just choose Spanish to do that. But I think the next level of that would be like signing up for a Coursera course, right? Like doing like a MOOC. So what they're called MOOC, massively online open course, MOOC. Um, use Duolingo in your target language. You can learn like Guarani from Spanish, not from English. Like there's so much you can actually do with your language beyond just consuming media. So learn a skill, watch the news, do things with your language.
Yeah. Do things that you wouldn't normally do.
Yeah, I'm happy. I get my news intake. I get to keep up with like Bad Bunny taking a break for 2023. It's gonna be the year of the
Bad Bunny
bunny, all
taking a
for
break.
himself. I get to like
Oh
hear
my god.
about like snowfall in Nevada and all the cool
Yeah.
things that I would not be doing in English because I don't watch English news. So that's really been reinvigorating is actually like getting news in my target language.
So here's another thing to re-engage yourself in content or keep things fresh. You can switch up the content that you actually do, but you can also switch up the way that you interact with your immersion.
Do more free flow.
Do more
Well, do
free
more
flow.
free flow, but I'm talking specifically intensive, like
Is
interactive
this where you're gonna
immersion.
talk about how you do your interactive without Anki?
I am about to go normie core and talk about this, but I
Go
was
normie
getting
core. I'm glad.
thank you. So, um had a lot of Anki cards. I don't want it to sound like I've never done Anki. I have like 3,000-ish cards that I mined in Spanish, so it's not like I've never touched Anki in my entire life.
I've got like
Uh,
6,000 in my mind
um,
deck for Spanish, and I don't rep it
that's
at all.
crazy. Yeah,
That's
well,
'cause
I
I
don't rep
don't yeah, I
mine.
don't rep them, yeah.
I actually deleted it. That's how hard I went. I went nuclear. It made me so mad. I deleted it. Don't do what I do. Just save it and shelve it and hoard it for later. but I found that I still needed to like do something intensive with my immersion. Free flowing just wasn't cutting it for me. I was getting bored. I felt my mind wandering too much. And sometimes when that happens, I have to kind of snap myself back into it. That used to be mining Anki cards, but I didn't want to do that. So instead, what I do is I will read a book and I will physically mine sentences and write them down. I'm not advocating that
Ooh.
people do this. I'm not advocating it at all, but it is something that I find incredibly satisfying. And it's something that I look forward to when I open up my journal and I have page after page after page of sentences with the definitions underneath. Um, it's a good way to stay mindful while reading and keep my head in the game. And I found that it helped increased my like presence in the moment, my awareness in the moment. And
I
it's a lot
Yeah,
slower, but I'm really enjoying it. And because I enjoy it, I'm doing it. So,
I'm happy for you.
thank you.
I am the biggest free flow advocate, but
Yeah.
I have to admit that since I've been so busy with school and can't really immerse, I actually I actually ended up missing doing intensive. Like, I felt like
Oh.
something was missing in my life. I'm just like, "Ah, I'm not looking at subtitles. I'm not looking up words. I'm not mining cards. Ah."
Yeah. It's crazy how that happens. I was the same way. I kind of revolted against doing intensive immersion for a while, and I found that I was not able to keep myself focused because I had stopped intensively immersing for so long. And even though like reading the books that I'm reading is slower, sometimes it's nice to have a physical record of everything that you've done so that on days where you feel like you haven't accomplished anything, you can look back at either the cards that you've mined or the pages that you've written and
Mhm.
go, actually, I've done quite a lot. It doesn't feel that way, but I know for a fact that I have 20 pages of notes, and that is nothing to scoff at. So
Mhm.
I think there's a
Speaking of
place for that.
notes and
Yeah.
looking back, another way to keep things fresh is revisiting content.
Sounds so ironic, doesn't it? Keep things fresh by doing the same thing over again, but there's some
Yeah,
nuances
it's
to
kind
that. Why
of
don't you
weird.
explain it?
Yeah, so for me personally, I have a specific anime that I really like, and I've watched it like 4 times. And it's kind of like unintentionally become my measuring stick to gauge progress in Japanese.
Yes.
And it's like I'll revisit it after a period of time, like a few months. And it's like, I feel like rewatching this. And then I'll go do that. And it's like every time I do that, by the time I'm finished, I realize that I've understood so much more and I've picked up so much more from the last time. And it's like I have a whole new perspective on this thing every time I rewatch it. Even though I know exactly what's going to happen, it's like I get something new out of it every time. And that's also something that you can do if you're feeling demotivated or um, like depressed or something about your progress, is to go pick something that you watched 6 months ago or a year ago and just go rewatch it. And um, you will be confronted by your progress. It is undeniable at that point.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. I have pieces of content that I'll do that with. Usually it's the first thing that I try to watch. Well, I say
Oh,
the
that's
first
Simona.
thing. No, not Sylvanas and Lana.
Mhm.
Hilda on Netflix, or I watched a lot of the Netflix animated series in Spanish when I first started because they were very visual and entertaining. I watched Hilda. I watched Kippo and the Age of Wonder Beasts. You guys seen that? Probably not.
I
It's really
have
good.
not. I've seen like
10 out
one
of
episode
10.
of Hilda.
Hilda's like these shows like they're made for kids, but they're real vibes. Like
I
the
watched I
visuals are
watched
great, the
the
music is amazing.
I watched one. It's like she had like a magic sword and you could like transform. Shira? She-Ra?
She-Ra?
Oh,
Yeah,
love
I've watched
She-Ra.
most of that. Yeah.
She-Ra, I watched it in Mandarin. It was actually surprisingly comprehensible despite not having matching subs or subs at all.
Huh.
Um,
Yeah.
I found it
I
like a
watched it
very
in English.
comprehensible show in Mandarin.
Yeah. Yeah,
It's a nice
yeah,
break. It's a nice break because like a lot of my content tends to either lean it's just not Netflix tier. And what I mean by that is like I watch a lot of content that's like very if you read a Filipino book, it's all Filipinos, right? And like I don't know, She-Ra, like the Netflix shows feel kind of like inclusive, like they're diverse and like
yeah.
it's
Mm.
definitely a break from what I usually do, which is like very like mono something, right? Like mono ethnic. It's all Filipinos, it's all Mexicans. And I just found it to be like a nice, like, hey, it's like girl power representation. And I found it to be like a
Mhm.
nice break from some of like the trashier
Love
anime
me
that I
some
watch or
girl power.
something. Um, and stuff, you know. So yeah, this is positive role models.
Something
They're
else,
they're easy to watch. It's like
mhm,
bubblegum.
yeah. I had another experience where I was, confronted by my progress. Um, Back before I was totally on the immersion train, um, I was kind of still on the fence, like, "Ah, I don't know about this," and I tried watching, the first episode of the anime Kion,
Okay.
without any subtitles, no English subtitles, no nothing. And, it sucked. I was like, "Wow, I don't understand anything." All those years of watching anime in Japanese with English subtitles seemed to do nothing for me. Maybe I was expecting too much, and I was kind of like, "What the heck?" I felt like I've been cheated. But then, maybe, like, close to a year later, maybe a few months shy of immersing for a year in Japanese, I went and listened to the condensed audio of Kion, and, it was like a surreal experience understanding almost every word of what they were saying. I was like, "What
It
the
is.
heck?"
Yeah. I did that recently. There was a book that I had tried to start to read a while back. The Son of the Traitor. It's an English series, but they translated it. And it's a kid's fantasy book, like a middle grades fantasy book. But when I had first tried to read it a long time ago, I had a hard time getting into it. There's a lot of words I didn't know. I couldn't get into a good flow. And that series is actually the series that I've been listening to on Audible. And I am probably at about a level 4.5 comprehension for it. And I'm able to like listen to it on 1.2 speed. So I went from like kind of like you being able to go to the condensed audio and just like ripping through it. I went from having a really hard time even getting into the book to I think I listened to 3 books of the series. Like boom, boom,
Nice.
boom in a series of weeks, on sped up speed on Audible, and that definitely felt good. It was definitely a confidence booster, and,
Mhm,
I feel like when you feel like you're making progress, it's super motivating, and it makes learning the language more exciting because 'cause you're like, "Yeah, I am doing this. I can do
mhm.
it. I've done it. Here's proof."
Yeah, all my effort is paying off.
Yeah.
Like, revisiting content and also trying easier content.
Mhm.
Um, like the comprehensible blank channels,
Input? Oh,
uh,
yeah.
li
I was
like,
like, "Do you need help with
com
that word, comprehensible input?"
Thank
"Do
you,
you
I
have a refill,
appreciate
bro?" Yeah, I'm here for
it.
you.
Yeah, like comprehensible Japanese, and I think dreaming Spanish is kind of like the equivalent of that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do things like that. Like, give yourself, some easy some easy slam dunks.
Yeah, it's okay to set yourself up for a win.
Yeah.
Like, it's
Set
okay to
up
do that.
the spike,
Yeah.
sports terms. Woohoo.
If you keep having L's, if you keep feeling demotivated and you're having a hard time finding content that you jive with, or it just feels too hard, man, it's okay to do something that you just know is too easy and it feels like a setup.
Mhm. Yep. set yourself up for
I've
success.
I've done that. Like, I've read, like, a graded reader a while back in Spanish just to kind of see how easy it was, and spoiler alert, it was really easy, and it was nice that it was really easy,
Yeah.
but yeah, I think that's really good. Conversely, Shiki, this is one of your points,
Mm,
so I'm gonna bring this one up.
mm.
Your one of your points to the opposite of that, don't be scared to do things that seem out of your league.
Yeah. Yeah,
It's
if
okay
there's,
to
like
punch up too.
yeah, yeah, if there's this, show that everyone's been talking about that you're super curious about, or not even other people talking about it. It's just something that you've seen and it catches your interest. Don't overanalyze it. Don't be like, I don't know. It's kind of harder than other stuff. It's got a lot of unknown words and I don't know. Just go for it. Just, give yourself a treat. Go for your interests and just give yourself that little dopamine hit.
That is actually an interesting topic. One that's worthy of its own episode
Mm,
is like how important is known word count? How important is Lexile Score for people who are familiar with Lexile Score? Because like in some ways it can be limiting, right? If you
mhm,
only read things that are super easy to free flow, right? That you have
mm,
high comp in. It's sort of easy to get caught. And coming from me of all people who loves reading things that are easy, it does not have a high tolerance for ambiguity. It's easy to like sort of be spinning your wheels and not be making any progress because you're immersing in the same domain, same words. You're not exposing yourself. And I think you're right. I think it can be a good way to like keep it fresh, get some new vocab come in, read hard stuff. It doesn't have to be inherently hard. It could be just because I only read romance and now I'm reading science fiction or something. Um, Sort of expand your horizons.
mhm. I feel like I had a couple of turning points in my, Japanese learning journey where it was like at the beginning, I tried to be systematic about it and do things other people were saying to do, is like starting off with the easy content, the content for kids, the comprehensible Japanese stuff, and I was just freaking bored, and then I went for the things that excite me and interest me, and then after that, I went through another phase of trying to do what I thought I was supposed to do and trying to go up in a ladder of content that would, get harder and harder as I went up, starting kind of easier. And then I had a second time where I was like, "Dude, screw this. I'm just gonna watch what I'm interested in." And then, like, I revitalized my Japanese by doing that because I was trying to slog through something that was supposed to be really easy, but I was so freaking bored. And then I was like, "Dude, I'm gonna watch this other show that looks really interesting." And then, I mean, crazy, I was actually into it and, waking up and wanting to do Japanese every day instead of, like, waking up dreading, like, "Oh god, I have to finish this show so I can move on to another one," and, ugh. It's just go for what interests you.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Because even if what you're watching is quote unquote too hard, there are ways to consume it and increase comprehensibility, even if just raw, it's incomprehensible. There are tools that you can use for most things. You can find transcripts, you can find episode summaries. There's a
Mhm.
lot of ways to make content that would be incomprehensible super comprehensible.
I
Like,
have noticed that with my Spanish news consumption lately. I
yeah.
browse Reddit in English, even if I don't like actually go and read the news subreddits or whatever. Um, but I do get the gist of like what's going on. And then when I go and I open up my YouTube shorts, I open up, Telemundo Noticias, right? I see all those same headlines and I'm like, okay, I've been primed, right? I've
Yes,
got that
priming, yep.
extra amount of information. It does. It helps to make it a lot more comprehensible.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, it's the same news story is going to be repeated 10 different ways in 10 different languages.
This might
And
sound crazy, but I feel like if you're open to spoilers, it really helps with comprehensibility. If
Mhm.
you spoil what's supposed to be, and I mean, a lot of people are probably like, "Oh my gosh, I could never spoil it." I don't care. Spoil. I'm fine with most spoilers. Um, I'm the type of person. Gosh, I don't want to get canceled for this, but
Oh, I'm
sometimes
ready.
if I'm really stressed, I'll look at the last page of a book.
Mm.
Why would you
Don't
get
ask.
canceled?
Because I feel like that's really controversial, like pineapple on pizza, looking at
I
the
feel
last
like
page
a
of a
lot of
book.
authors are awful at ending. You know, I'm thinking of like Kuya Soju, I'm thinking of Stephen King. I can understand because, like, sometimes they just don't end books well. I don't know.
Who to root
That's
for, I wanna know who to start mourning, I just wanna know what's going on
Oh, you're
I
getting a
so
head
I can
start on
actually
the
prepare
like
myself
emotions.
spoilers.
emotionally.
I like
Yeah.
spoilers. I always try to be cognizant of the fact that people don't like them, and I don't give them,
Yes. Well,
especially in
people can
Refold.
get banned in the Japanese
People
server for
have been
spoilers, right?
banned from Refold communities for giving spoilers. They take it seriously, but I don't mind
It's so
spoilers usually.
serious. Yeah, there might be some things that I don't want spoiled because I want to figure it out myself, but, sometimes when I'm getting really
Talking
stressed, I'll
about
look at a
dating
wiki.
yourself, by the way, I used to
Huh?
play World of Warcraft when
Yeah?
Dumbledore died.
Oh, spoiler
And you
alert,
Mhm.
Dumbledore
ye
dies.
Dumbledore dies, but at the time, if you opened up anything, World of Warcraft, uh,
Yeah,
MySpace, whatever,
yeah.
you were gonna get spoiled. Like,
Not
you would have had to have gone
MySpace.
I'm dating myself here, but, like, even
Someone
back then,
spoiled it on our local radio station.
I
What a
didn't
jerk move.
I didn't care back then. I don't care now.
I cared. I
I don't mind
cared.
spoilers because, like, you can still enjoy the story.
Mhm.
Um,
Can you? It depends.
I think so, but not everybody can, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Um,
Somebody who's never read Harry Potter, who's, like, getting into the series right now, is listening to this podcast, and they're like, "Ah, you
come on,
monsters.
it's like a 20-year-old spoiler
Unsubscribe."
at this point.
Yeah, I know,
Don't say
like
that. No.
oh, my aging heart is so
Ugh.
sad. But I think that spoilers, another cool thing to like keep things fresh is if you're really excited about a series, look at the wiki, find communities about the things that you're interested in.
Mm.
Like you don't have to like limit yourself to just consuming shows and content. Follow your favorite stars in your target language on Twitter. Find interviews of them on YouTube. You can find forums of fanatical people about the things that you like. You can
Mhm.
find wikis. I find like usually the series that I read, I like to read the wikis after I'm done with them and really like
I have
dive
Oh, yeah.
deep.
watched so many videos on YouTube Shorts in Spanish of Adam's Family stuff, and I don't even like Adam's Family that
Yes.
much. But just because Wednesday is
Wednesday
trending,
is a bop. Yeah.
I'm learning all
Merlina.
sorts of stuff. Like, I'm seeing how, the thing, or dedos in Latin American
Dedos.
Spanish,
Dedos.
looked in, like, the original 1960s TV series, and, like, it's
Yeah.
kinda cool, like, getting into the fandom of whatever you like, but in your target language. Like, it's cool watching all of the Spanish speakers talk about Addams Family lore, but in Spanish, right? And, I think it's something people don't consider, right? Like, you're so focused on, "I'm gonna get scolded. Someone is gonna be listening to this, and it's like, you
I'm
just said
ready.
right 3 times in a row. People are gonna comment on it."
That's right.
Right?
Right.
Anyways, you get
Like.
caught up in, like, watching the series, but not doing what you do in your own native language, which is dealing with the fandom, right? There's
Mhm.
already Merlina, right, Wednesday, uh,
Merlina.
fanfics on Wattpad already, like, fully fleshed
Really?
out. There are,
They're
go
quick.
they are
They're
quick.
speedy people.
They are very fast. There's already
Find me a good one.
fanfics.
I'll read one. I'll try to read one. Find me a good one.
I've not
Find me a
actually
good.
I've not actually, looked at any. I'm assuming they're gonna be bad, but the point is the fandom is fast. They make all of the things. I'm watching people dissect who did the Wednesday dance better, but in Spanish,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
And all of the lore, and I think it's great. Go find people, find your fandom.
Definitely.
Find your people, man.
Find your
Find
people.
your people. Yeah, absolutely.
Let's see here. Yeah, go
There
find your
was
people.
Yeah. There's so many things that you can do
Mm.
to keep things fresh. I had one on the tip of my tongue, and I'm having a hard time remembering what I wanted to say. We had changing activities, which we talked about, changing the way that you interact with the language,
Changing the
dropping
medium.
things, dropping things that don't spark joy, do things that are too easy, go after things that are out of your league, and do like beginner content as an advanced person because why not?
I have had
And
this.
find your
I've had the
people.
urge to watch Peppa Pig in Spanish.
Do it.
I
Do
just
it.
feel like it's going to be comprehensible and comprehensible enough that I can watch it while I'm doing something else and still benefit
Mhm.
from it. So I'm on board. Go watch easy things after
Mhm.
having not touched easy stuff in a year or two.
I know what
Yeah.
I wanted to say. I remember.
Yeah.
I remember. Procrastinate in your target language.
Ooh.
Yeah. So like if you feel like you should be doing something in your target language, like I said that you do have goals and there are certain things that you really want to do. If you don't feel like doing it, it's okay to procrastinate in your target language. I said it,
Hmm.
you
Like listen
know?
to a podcast instead of doing intensive.
And it kind of like you feel like you're doing something naughty.
Yeah.
And I feel like it makes it feel more exciting when you're like, "Ooh, I shouldn't be doing
Ooh, the
this."
thrill.
There's a thrill of, like, procrastinating, like, "Oh, I
I
shouldn't
got
be."
distracted. So you asked about Wattpad fanfics. I'm
Yeah?
like looking fecha de inicio
Look at
2
you
days ago.
procrastinating in
2 days
Spanish.
ago. And
Look at
there's
that.
already 23 chapters, and they just
Oh my
started it 2
gosh.
days ago
Send
of this
Please
Wednesday
send it to
fanfic.
me.
I will. Wednesday Burn My Heart. It's in Spanish, despite the
Stay
English title.
part of my heart.
Yes.
What?
They started it 2 days ago. They've already written 23 chapters, Bree.
I wanna know who this person is writing it, and
No,
I wanna
but
know
it's not
all
just this
about
one.
their
There's
life.
many. It's wild, man.
You just sent it to me. Oh my
I
gosh. Do you know
did
how hard
just
it
send it
is
to you.
you know how hard it is for me to, like, not open this right now
Don't
as we're
open it
having
right
our
now.
podcast?
I
Not
got
in
I'm just
public,
like,
distracted.
Bree.
I have ADHD PI, y'all. I get distracted. I'm sorry.
"Oh, me
But
too."
Wednesday fanfics in Spanish. And the crazy thing is, not to turn this into the Wednesday podcast, they all got different names in Latin America and in Spain.
They do.
It's
Merlina,
Merlina,
miércoles
and yes, so Spain goes with like a literal translation,
of
and
Wednesday.
LatAm just like totally rebrands it.
They're
Not
like,
to turn
no,
this into the
it's
Wednesday podcast.
Merlina." I saw that on Netflix and I thought, who is because I didn't remember that I was on Spanish mode on my Netflix. And so like in English in my head, I was like, who's Merlina? What is this? Like little Merlin? What's going on? And then I realized it was the Addams Family Wednesday and it was the cultural phenomenon that everybody was talking about. And usually if I want to participate in like something like that in English, one of my rules is I have to do it in Spanish. So I watched it in Spanish and it was really enjoyable. And I felt like I was doing something naughty because I was watching, an English show that everybody's talking about. And I had goals of reading a book, but instead I binge watched Merlina two
It's
days straight
tough
over
to
the
get
weekend.
used to dubs of like actual live action people when you're not used to watching them, you know? I feel
Yeah,
like it's a lot easier to get into dubbed animation.
it is. But I actually found this dub to be not that. You watched it in Spanish though, right?
Well, I'm still watching it because like I have the attention span of a gnat. I'm
I feel
on
that.
episode
Of a
4, I
gnat.
think. So I've not even gotten to the famous dance scene. It's been ruined for me because of social media.
It's not ruined. It's still gonna be awesome in the moment. Don't worry about it. I saw the dance scene first too. But yeah, I think this dub is pretty good in
Yeah, what
particular.
trips me out is
Netflix dubs I
Netflix,
think
they
are pretty
had
good.
matching subs for the Latin American Spanish dub
For the
for
first
episode 1.
episode. That's
For the
it.
first episode, that's it. The rest of them are
Those
not matching. They're
they're
not CC.
monsters.
I
they
don't know, it
they
was
bait and
such a
switched you.
tease. It was such a tease. I was like,
I was
"Whoa,
so excited, yeah.
matching. It's got CC subs for the Spanish dub." I was like,
It's such a treat when
"Whoa."
you can find content that has matching subs and dubs when you're really into it, at least for me, because I can't handle
Well,
telenovelas.
I tend to read my TV because, like,
Yeah.
I don't know. I like to have earplugs in and noise canceling headphones. I don't
Mhm.
deal with, like, noise very well. And I live in a very noisy place. Like, there's somebody running, like, a grinder or a power tool. Y'all can't hear it because my AI is, like, noise filtering it, like, right now because it's, like, I don't know, 9 or 10 AM, uh, and people are working, and I just
Mhm.
can't cope with it, like, when I'm trying to immerse or whatever, so I'm guilty of, like, literally putting in earplugs and then just reading TV. I started reading an anime, reading, Isekai Oji-san, like Uncle from another world or whatever, Other World Uncle.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Really good, by the way. I found it funny, but I'm happy. There's no Spanish dub on my mobile Netflix, but it's
Mhm.
okay. I'll just put it in Japanese and read the Spanish subs. Totally fine.
Oh,
Yeah, it's
hack.
basically reading. It's just it's a moving manga. There, I said it like
Yeah,
y'all.
it's like treating it like a
Manga.
Mm.
moving manga. Exactly, I
It's
agree.
it's just a moving manga. Here's another tip for keeping things fresh. I just thought of this because I actually have done this. Changing up your environment.
I don't
So
Can
do
for
you
that. I
me,
live in a
explain?
box like 3 foot by 3 foot wide.
I would love to explain. I would love to explain. Yeah, this is definitely something if you have the luxury to do this. But I would read usually in bed or like in certain places in my house. And I started, this is going to sound, maybe this is just me, but I started reading like other places that I wouldn't normally read. And it
Mm.
was really nice. It made it feel really different. It made the experience feel different. Um, I had this table in my living room. And so instead of sitting myself up at my computer table where I work, I moved my immersion over to that table where it was more of like a lounging area. And it was a lot more relaxing than being in my work zone. Even though it was just like a 15-foot,
Ooh.
like I just moved like 10, 15 feet.
Yeah.
It totally shifted the vibe
It's
or
the
totally shifts the vibe.
vibes.
Yeah. Maybe I'm just crazy, but
I
I
think it's
feel
fine. I
like
think sometimes you just gotta change where you're studying. Go to a coffee
like
shop, go to a
get
park, go
comfortable,
outside.
touch grass.
Go touch grass.
When it's
Phineas,
warm
who was
out,
our
I love
guest a
reading
weekend or
outside.
2 ago, he very much reads in different places. Yeah.
Yeah.
He
I like
he
getting cozy and,
he
you
has,
know,
like, this crazy little, like, arm thing for his tablet, and, like, he can, like, put it
oh.
on, like, an armrest and, like, put it at, like, eye level, all ergonomic.
Mhm.
Just takes it everywhere. Like, "I'm sitting on this park bench, whip out the tablet, put it there." So, I think it's fine if you got the space. I personally, if I go outside, it'll be
Mhm.
noisy, polluted, and I'll get all that sunlight, and then I'll be up. I won't be able to go to sleep because I sleep during the daytime.
Mhm. So you
So,
you pluck some grass and you bring it inside.
bring the
And
grass
then
inside
that grass you touch once a day, and maybe that'll help keep you motivated
for
and
sure.
Mm.
keep you fresh. Touch some
But I
fresh
think it's
grass.
fine. I definitely read different places in my tiny little apartment.
Yeah,
Uh,
I mean, even
Big fan
just
of
changing the
toilet reading.
orientation of my chair. Like something as simple as pointing my chair towards the window, putting my chair towards the Christmas tree. Like, I don't know. It's like changing what I'm looking at shifts my mood and can sometimes help me focus better. It seems really simple, but I promise you, I was really excited to bring up that topic. I was like, "Oh, change your environment. It's such a big thing you can do."
I just thought of this. What about going low tech?
Yes, I mean, we all know I'm a big fan.
Mhm. Like, people who say, I don't wanna read on my phone or my tablet before bed because
Then
it keeps
don't.
me awake. Go get some physical books.
Mhm.
Go low tech.
I feel like going low tech is easier when you're not a beginner anymore.
Right, yeah, that's true.
But I
You're not
feel
as
like
reliant
that's
on
when you would
lookups.
need that shift the most though. Because as a beginner, I was really excited playing like word detective. I
Mhm.
would read my books on link. I would click the buttons. I get excited about adding links and adding Anki cards. But now that I'm at a place where I still have to do lookups, But I don't. It's not as much friction reading something in a
I
physical
mean, it
book.
can be, we
Yeah.
mentioned this earlier, it can be limiting relying on having a pop-up dictionary because, like,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes you'll be in an app on your mobile device and you won't have a dictionary, right? Or like, if I wanted to read Wattpad natively on like the app on my phone, I wouldn't have a dictionary, right? And it just adds some friction. Sometimes you just want to like
It does.
not use language reactor, not use a pop-up
Yeah.
dictionary, get a paper book, even if you have to skip over words or come back or write them down.
Yeah.
It can definitely keep it fresh because sometimes the technology can feel limiting.
It can. What I've been doing with my paper book is because of my many books that I'm reading, one of them is a paper book. And what I'm doing is I'm free flow reading it, but I'm underlining the words that I don't know. And then at the end of the chapter, I'll go back and I'll look up those words if I couldn't figure out from context. So that's a good way to kind of maximize your time when you're reading something physically is go back and then do all your lookups at once so you're already in that app on your phone and it doesn't take that much time. And also I think that little bit of added friction as far as doing lookups could be good because you have that word in your mind longer, especially if you're not doing Anki. I feel like every little bit helps, but y'all, I think we're at time
Yeah.
in
I
this
think we
episode.
covered everything.
We we covered a lot. So to sum everything up, it's okay if things start to feel stale when learning a language, but there are tons of things that you can do to reinvigorate the excitement that you have for learning your language from watching different content, keeping a bunch of different things on rotation, to doing easy things to harder things. The
Start
important thing
outputting,
is
journaling.
outputting, yeah, dabbling, going low tech, going super high tech. Basically, just switch it up. There's no one way to interact with or consume media. So the important thing is to follow your interests and just do what's working for you. So, with that, I want to thank you for joining us for this episode of the Refold Roundtable podcast. If you are tuning in for the live premiere, make sure to join us for the after party immediately after the podcast in the Refold Discord. If you like this episode and want to hear more, you can listen to past episodes on YouTube and Spotify and anywhere else that there are podcasts. If you enjoy this episode, please make sure to give us a like and leave a comment to let us know. We'd love to hear from you. If you have an idea for a future topic for a future episode, we'd love to hear from you. You can suggest future topics in the Refold Discord, and everything that I mentioned will be linked in the description box below. And that's it for this week. We will chat with you later.
Thanks for tuning into this week's episode of the Refold Podcast. We hope you enjoyed listening and maybe even learned something new. Projects, events, and content like this podcast are only possible thanks to our generous patrons. If you liked this and want to see more similar projects, please consider supporting us on Patreon. Visit community.refold.la/Patreon-benefits to learn more.